Pathmonk is the AI for website conversions. With increasing online competition, over 98% of website visitors don't convert. The ability to successfully show your value proposition and support visitors in the buying journey separates you from the competition online. Pathmonk qualifies and converts leads on your website by figuring out where they are in the buying journey and influencing them in key decision moments with relevant micro experiences like case studies, intro videos, and much more. Stay relevant to your visitors and increase conversions by 50% by adding Pathmonk to your website in seconds, letting the artificial intelligence do all the work, and increase conversions by 50% while you keep doing marketing as usual. Check us out on pathmonk.com. All right, everyone, welcome to today's episode of Pathmonk Presents. Today, we are joined by Justin Gilchrist. He's the CEO and co-founder of WellBox. Justin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rick, thanks for having me on.
Of course, of course. So, Justin, I think this will get some people excited, especially from the UK, but not only in the UK. And what I mean by that is that your company has a special proposition. So, without me getting into it, I would love it if you could just talk about a little bit about WellBox, and how would you describe it to someone new?
Absolutely. So our overall goal is to make gifting as simple as possible for business users. And by that, businesses send gifts for various reasons. Some of them send gifts to their staff, and that could be a gift when a new member of the team starts work or is due to start work. It could be gifts on holidays or gifts for maybe 1 year in service, 5 years in service. Someone's come back off retirement. Actually, no, never off retirement. Someone's come back off maternity leave or they're about to go on to retirement. We hope they don't come back from retirement. Or it could be a gift to a client. It could be a renewal gift or a gift to maybe get a prospect over the line. So we help make all of these gifting moments easy. We're quite unique in the fact that we're a hybrid of SaaS and e-commerce. So we operate warehouses. We have 3 warehouses here, all in Manchester. And we produce the gifts, we customize the gifts, we do everything, including sort of bespoke customization and printing in-house. We warehouse gifts and warehouse merchandise for companies and dispatch those gifts when they need them. But we also provide the software platform that makes all of that easy and most of all secure.
That's really cool. And we were just talking offline about the fact that you're in the UK, you're based in the UK, and you serve UK companies, but not only, right? Is there any specific industry or vertical that you think you're able to serve best, or do you think this applies to anyone and everyone, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of playbook, kind of what we do is universal. I would say, and I've had this conversation with other SaaS founders in the UK, especially Manchester. Each order removed you are from the US, I'd say the harder it tends to be. So you almost become better at what you do, the further away you are from sort of the US and the US economy. So I think anyone in the UK at the moment is probably not, they've probably, heard that the UK economy in the grand scheme of other economies isn't doing that well. We're experiencing slower growth. So it is, especially as a SaaS company, harder to grow. If you're trying to raise, I believe it's harder to raise money than if you're in the US. And I don't think that's ever been any different. But I feel like we've got a great sort of finance industry here. There's a lot of fintechs, mostly based out of London. But we're in Manchester, and Manchester's it's the 3rd largest city in the UK, but it's what everyone calls the 2nd city. And I think there's a lot of people from Birmingham would be upset with me for saying this, but it's probably the 2nd most important city, and we've probably got a good concentration of startups here. But yeah, I'd say it's much harder to do what we do in software outside of the US, especially outside of London, just because it's harder to tap into that network, but also there's a smaller local market than if we're working in the US.
Right, makes sense. Would you say then, so across your customer base, is there a specific is there a target person that usually ends up on WellBox's .co.uk and goes for gifting? Is it the office manager? I'm just trying to understand, who actually will buy from you and be interested in your product.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably one of the sort of pivotal things that as you grow and you start to get different ICPs, it's having that sophistication to understand the different ICPs that you're targeting and being able to speak to those ICPs differently, target those people differently. So for us primarily, and this is probably because of how we started, our core ICP is someone working in HR that's relatively senior. So within a smaller company, it may actually not be HR. It might be in a really small company. It might be the CEO, or it might be someone that's got dual responsibility between HR and maybe office management. But in the companies we tend to target, it's generally your head of HR, your head of people, chief people officer. And in really large organizations, you'll generally have someone that specializes in staff rewards and benefits. Those are the people that we tend to target and we tend to attract because we're sort of heavily in employee and HR gifting. But as we're sort of growing up as a company and we're getting more sophisticated, we're moving into kind of different segments. So we're now dealing with a lot of head of marketing and head of sales, a lot of sort of facilities management and office management for things like office snack boxes. So a lot of companies, they'll order snack boxes on a regular basis to provide to their employees sort of free of charge as a nice perk. So it depends on kind of what business unit we're dealing with. But I generally say head of HR is still our kind of core ICP.
Right. But it makes sense that, the head of marketing and the head of sales would, this would pique their interest because, you want to do a higher touch type of outreach, direct mail type of thing. You've got something well crafted, a nice gift. I think it would definitely grab my attention. It doesn't happen every day. So,
I think
yeah.
that's the crazy thing is if you think about how direct mail's changed, and I've been doing this for 25, 26 years, and I remember as a kid obsessing over direct mail and being really into direct mail. And I remember the point where like the most sophisticated direct mail got back then was someone sellotaping a pound coin to a letter and sending it out and being like, hey, here's a crazy gimmick to get you excited and interested in what we've got to offer. And direct mail now, it still works. And you see direct mail a lot with sort of finance companies, people that do sort of cards, charge cards, and they're constantly sending direct mail out. And it's a bit like pizza leaflets where you've got to wonder if they send you 20, 30 of these in a year, they must be getting an ROI when they've been doing it for 5, 6 years. So direct mail in its simplest form still works. And what we're doing ultimately is it's almost an extension of direct mail where we're sending out goods, we're sending out an object. So best example is someone in marketing that has a campaign and they have a segment in their CRM of people who are definitely warm prospects, sales qualified leads. They have information on them. They know that they're in the market. They've got a need. They're likely to convert, but they just need something to really engage and connect with them and make their offering or their company relevant. They'll often send them like either a personalized gift that's personalized to the individual or a branded gift that has sort of value to them, but also shares the branding and shares the values of the company. And they're just seeing great conversions from that and a great ROI from that. And I still think in an age where we're now predominantly digital with email and social, being able to send something real world that people can touch and having that opportunity to really delight someone where they get something they're not expecting, turn up at their office or at their home, and it's good quality stuff and it's stuff they probably wouldn't have bought for themselves. I think that's an amazing thing if you can do that as a company.
Yeah, I was thinking as you said that maybe it was my perception, it's been my perception, but there was obviously, in the 80s, 90s, or even before then, direct mail was the only way. And then email came along and, everyone thought direct mail was just dead.
Yeah.
And just common perception, right? And then eventually I think people thought, okay, it's dead, it's still dead. And now in the last few years, it seems like, more services like yours and other services are coming up. And it's just, I think it's that wow factor, what you mentioned, that physical touch, it's a different experience that getting an email. It's out in the ether. It's not real in a way. But when you get a package, you get a gift, it's a surprise, or you can touch it, you can open it. It's this, the colors, the smells,
Yeah.
it's a different thing. So
Absolutely.
yeah, no, that's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
it's also a case of knowing where in the pipeline to use what type of direct mail. So if you've got someone that's like really top of funnel, you don't know much about them, you've kind of maybe got some demographic or flexographic information about them, and you understand they're at least in your target market, but you don't yet know if they've got a need. Probably the worst waste of money would be to send them a physical gift, because you just don't have enough information about whether or not they're likely to convert. Sending them a letter at that point, or a postcard, might be a good idea. But I think using digital to warm them up. But once they're on your website and maybe they've downloaded the white paper, or maybe they've booked a demo but they didn't convert, or maybe they're like a lapsed SQL that's gone cold, that's when it's a really good point. As long as you know they've got that need, that's when it's a good idea to send something. So we see people kind of middle of funnel sending sales gifts when they're prospecting, and it only needs to be something like a box of cookies or a box of brownies with a personalized message in there and a personalized note. But it's that kind of brightening their day. It's something that people remember, and it creates an emotional connection. And I just think that goes a long way. And then you've got people sort of further down the funnel, near to bottom of funnel, where they're sending maybe a larger, more expensive gift to a prospect that perhaps they've been courting for 2-3 months, and maybe that person's had a promotion, or it's their birthday, or they're going on maternity leave. It's always a great idea then just to kind of create that lasting memory, so they remember you and hopefully convert, or if they've already converted, maybe take you along on the next phase of their journey.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm curious. So let's say I'm an HR director, right? And I want to know what kind of services out there that could do gifting. And if I stumble upon WellBox, then I land on the website, right? What's the role of the website when it comes to be actually, because you were talking about funnel, so I want to understand in your funnel, how important do you think your website is when it comes to attracting new clients, but also being able to serve them and obviously convert them right
Yeah, our
away?
website's it's everything. So unlike other companies that kind of sit in our sort of category, in our segment, we currently have over 80% of the FTSE 250 as clients. The FTSE 250, for anyone in the US, is sort of the UK is tiny, but to us very relevant and very major sort of list of the largest publicly traded companies.
Yeah, it's like the S&P 500 or
Exactly.
equivalent kind of. Yeah.
Exactly. So we have a lot of enterprise clients, but still to date, we don't do outbound sales. I'm not saying that will never change, but we don't do outbound sales at the moment. So all of that has been inbound, which means our website's crucial. Our website's everything to us. So we're pulling people in through different through different inbound channels. A lot of digital, a lot of word of mouth. But one of our major jobs is to obviously move people down that funnel. And the only way we really do that successfully is initially by building trust. I see a lot of cases where with e-commerce websites, because it's very transactional in nature, it's almost like the first job for them is just to sell. And that initially was our approach, but that really didn't work for us. So now we've kind of shifted. We are there to sell, and we still are e-commerce for the small purchases. We occasionally get sort of B2C purchases, which we don't target those, but they're nice to have. We'll occasionally get purchases from smaller companies who just want one gift. They just want to kind of do something, get in and get out. But for clients looking for the full experience, for clients looking to use the platform, it really is about building trust. And for us, it's about trying to anticipate what journey that customer is going to be on, where in the journey they already are, and then making sure we give them the right information at the right stages to convert. And that's a difficult job. It's one that's been a lot of trial and error.
Absolutely. And I like that you mentioned this transition from, to selling more, because at the end of the day, when you have a business and it's an online business, then uh, that's how you stay afloat and actually thrive. So staying on the website topic for a second, have you learned anything about, I'm sure you have, but I guess, if you could share with us what makes, for you personally, in your experience, because you got extensive experience in marketing, so I know what you're talking about. When it comes to a high converting websites, right? This can come from your experience at WellBox, obviously, but also from you can draw from your previous experience. What are the maybe tools or methods that you would say are our audience, our listeners here could use to make sure that they convert more?
So I think the mistake that we initially made, and perhaps this is now being phased out as a way of thinking, because we have a lot of enterprise clients and a lot of sort of medium to large size businesses in there. We had this mindset that there's a way you need to be for enterprise. You look at other, I'm saying it in inverted commas, enterprise sites, and they have a certain way of approaching the market. And we realized that how we be successful is by looking at what works really well for B2C, what works really well for retail in general, and applying that same thinking to what we're doing here. And it's simply because those people within organizations, they're just people. They want to be entertained in the same way they want to be informed. They want information and they want information quickly. And I'd say the other side to that as well is simplicity. The simpler you can make it for someone to do their job, which within an organization, there's usually a different motive. So when you're B2C, you're often selling a product that's going to be consumed by the person that's purchasing. So if you're selling training shoes, then the person on your site is the one enjoying those training shoes. But when you're B2B, you've got entirely different motives because the consumer is often not the person that's on your site looking. So with us, the person, especially with gifts, you're another order removed because the person looking is looking for gifts for someone else. So their priority is actually doing their job, not finding an amazing gift. Finding an amazing gift is a part of it. But really what they want to be able to do is navigate through that site as efficiently as possible. They want as little distraction, as little confusion, and they want to get a job done. So really breaking down what that user's trying to do. And I mean, there's the whole jobs to be done framework, but it doesn't need to be as complex as that. It really is just thinking from this person's role in the organization, what is their objective? What is the thing that will make their day easier? So if they're in sales, they want to sell more products. And how is your website going to help them do that? The quicker you can help them do that, the better. For us, they're in HR. They want to keep their people engaged and happy. The way they've chose to do that is by sending a gift. So the quicker we can get them to the point where they're actually sending that gift, that physical gift out, the better it is for us. So every time we've simplified the website, we've gone back, we've seen conversions improve.
I love it. Simplicity is the key word, right? And if you could just put all of what you just said together in one word, but obviously it will be too little to understand. Just make it simple. But the way you explained that actually makes a lot of sense.
Product market
So
fit as well is probably one of the key things for us, and you can't have that product market fit until you really understand who it is you're targeting. And I think in the early days, we didn't know who we were targeting. In the early days, we were just grateful to get anybody purchasing, which I think is the case for any kind of any company starting out. But I think having the courage at one point to think, right, I'm not going to exclude everybody else, but I am only going to focus on this particular segment for this particular use case means you can really start to refine your messaging, means you can really start to understand the job that particular person is trying to do, which means you can just get everything a lot more refined and, again, a lot more simple for that person to get from A to B.
yeah, and again, understanding is also a keyword here. So sounds like you're connected to your audience in a way that you understand what they're actually looking for, and it goes layers deeper, I guess, because as you said, someone who ends up on your website might not be the final consumer of that gift. Actually, usually isn't, right?
Sure.
So understanding what this person needs to do to get their job done, but also what's the final result for the person who receives the gifts to create an experience and say, WellBox, follow them from the person that needed to buy the gift till the person who gets it actually recognizes that that it's beautiful, they like it. Um, so Yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful service. I mean, again, I said at the beginning, I think many of our listeners will go check it out. But we're coming towards the end of the interview, Justin. So we have a segment here, that's called rapid fire questions, and it's pretty self-explanatory. So the only rule that we have is that only short and crisp answers are needed. Would you be ready for that?
Absolutely.
All right. What's the last book you read?
Oh, who is Michael Ovitz?
That anything stick with you?
Yeah, be nice.
Okay, cool. Um, One thing that your company is focused on right now.
E-gift cards, which is tied into expansion.
Okay. No boundaries in technology. What's one thing that you won't fix today?
We'd like to do more with AI, but that's a difficult one for me to answer in short.
That's fine. Anything specific, is it revenue? Is it operations?
Operations mostly, been able to give mass personalization, or been able to allow people to really get in and personalize. And I feel like AI is the answer for that.
Okay. So one task that you do every day that's repetitive and annoying, what would that be?
Just making my breakfast count because I have the same breakfast Monday to Friday.
It does. Maybe you could automate it. I guess, that's part of missing up from there. Could you automate something that you do every day? But it sounds automated already.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to automate the making breakfast part. There's some kind of like there's an element of mindfulness in there and starting. But I mean, I massively struggle with emails simply because I deal with all the bits that there is no one in place to deal with. So I deal with all the exceptions and all the one-offs and sort of future bits. So I think I'd love more automation in handling all the sort of emails and dealing with the bits I do, but I think it'd be very difficult.
Hmm. Okay. What's one piece of advice that you give yourself you could restart your journey as a founder, as a marketer, and as a CEO today?
That one's easy. Focus 100%. Focus on what I'm doing, focus on a market, focus on a product, focus.
Okay. And it ties to the mindfulness you just mentioned. So, well, Justin, I want to thank you for being on the show with us today. It was a good conversation. Really enjoyed it. So I also want to give you a last word. So, if someone forgets everything about what we said today, what's one thing they should remember about WellBox and the work you guys are doing?
Um, there's always a different way to, as we say, skin a cat. We're self-funded. We have a company with genuinely happy people. And we're trying to build a software company in a different way. And obviously, having the e-commerce element is a big part of that. One, for us to kind of get some liquidity and to get cash flow, but two, because it provides a much more eloquent way of doing customer acquisition. So I just encourage people to think about for their own companies, thinking outside the box and maybe doing things in an unconventional way, but a way that might work for them and where they are in the world and their own personal circumstance and what they want.
Very nice. And I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna ask you, do you want to point people to any specific uh, channel or website? I'm gonna say wellboxes.co.uk is one of them for sure. Um, do you have anything else that you want our audience to check out?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a big reader, so most of my recommendations would be books. The other book I'm reading at the moment is called, I think it's Incredible Hospitality or Outrageous Hospitality, and it's by the guy that started. I'm probably going to butcher all of this, but I think it's 11 Madison Square, 11 Madison Park. Um, yeah, I don't have anything digital. I mean, I try and do as much as I can offline. I'm offline as much as I can be outside of work. So I'd just say read more, read biographies, read books, and listen to podcasts. There's a lot of great information out there.
Love it. of it. I love the message, and I agree. Sometimes we just need to unplug and live life offline. Okay, sweet, Justin. Thank you so much again for joining us, and wish we can speak again soon.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks for having me on.
Bye bye, everyone.